There we go. Good morning, Devin Pearce.
Good
How are
morning.
you?
Good. How are you?
Good. I am beyond thrilled because, oh my gosh, we first met a few years ago when I was exploring starting my own business, same with my husband, and you helped coach us. And I'm so excited to talk to you more about business coaching.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah. Do you want to give a quick introduction of yourself?
Yeah. So I actually ran into coaching I was probably back in 2014. I had a conversation with someone who was trying to figure out a couple things in their life, and through a series of me just asking them a few questions, they were able to get a lot of clarity around what they wanted to do. And I walked away and I was like, that was really cool. I really didn't come to him with any specific ideas, but he figured it out. He already kind of knew what he wanted. He just needed to kind of talk it out. I was like, this is really cool. I need to find out what this is. And so I actually figured out that there was this whole industry of coaching and mentoring, and that this was an entire thing. And so I decided that I wanted to head down that path. I sought out my own coach who had already built up a successful practice, and got coached from her on how she built up her practice. But more importantly than that, she really coached me on who I was as a person, how I could develop as a person so that I could get the results that I was looking for, and things like that. So that's kind of how I got started in all of it, and then went to professional coaching school, and it was a year-long process, about 100 hours in the classroom, 100 hours of practical, and took a rigorous exam to get certified by the International Coaching Federation. So, and then from there, have coached people all around the world in their businesses, primarily. Entrepreneurs is the main group that I usually help people that I help a lot of people transition from their current jobs into a more of an entrepreneurial role, and also help current business owners, help them get to the next level. So that's kind of what I've done. So.
Yes. And I reached out to you and wanted to have this conversation because so many of the guests on the podcast have mentioned in their life the importance of reaching out to someone just like you to help them, whether it's in those initial steps or I believe we even had Will Humphreys who talked to us about how he had been an entrepreneur for a while, but hit this pivotal moment where it was sucking the life out of him. And at that point, he reached out to someone. There's no necessarily right time or like, I missed the opportunity to have a business coach, I'm out of luck sort of thing. And so I wanted to have a conversation with you to help our listeners see, okay, what does it mean to reach out to a coach? How do I pick a coach? How do I get the most out of my coaching? What can I expect from business coaching? I know it's a lot of questions all at once, so maybe we just start with like how you pick your coach. I'll just leave it there.
Well, first of all, I'm a little biased. I feel like everyone should have a coach, and the reason I'm biased is not necessarily because I'm a coach, but because I've been coached so much, and I've had so many. I should say a handful of different coaches for different needs in my life, and I have been blown away the transformation of my inward life as well as my outward results through the period of that 5 to 6 years of bringing in coaching into my life. And so first of all, I think that it's always a great time to explore coaching. It is really important to find a coach that fits you though. And so when you're really looking for a coach,
kind of like therapists.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I think everybody at one point in their life probably needs a therapist at some point or another, right?
Yep, and picking the right one. Okay.
Yeah,
so
but
you're saying that maybe you might reach out to a few and have a few conversations, and then just when you feel like there's a good fit, you kind of settle on that individual.
I think even before that, I think the most important part is getting clear on what you're seeking through coaching. And maybe what you're seeking in your life or your business will really help determine that, right? So if I'm seeking to 10x my business, I'm going to seek out a different coach than if I'm trying to increase the depth of my relationships in my life. Those would be two different coaches that you would seek out. And so I think first of all, it's really important to get clear on what your goal and objective is. That's the biggest piece. Also, there's different types of coaches even within each sector, right? There's coaches who could be a mentor for you. So that'd be kind of a mentoring relationship where they've gone and done, and they have the specifics, and they can walk you step by step on how to get there. Then there's more general coaching that really helps and incorporates you as a person as part of that process as well. So kind of could be some mentoring, but really the goal of what we'd consider like traditional coaching is really helping you develop as a person so that you can then go out and get those results. Helps you with the things that are holding you back, helps you be able to really break through the mindsets and the things that you need to really have those big shifts in your life. And that's where we see the biggest jumps in performance, the biggest jumps in results is when you adjust, perspectives in your life. That's really where big change can happen. And then probably at the most basic level, you have very basic accountability coaching as well. And I personally have an accountability coach like this right now, where we just meet 20 minutes every week. We go over my specific objectives for the week. Did I accomplish them? Did I not? What held me back from doing that? And those are kind of
outside of work life, or is that within your work? Like, how does that one work?
Yeah, so that one primarily started out as a kind of a work and business goals situation, but I've actually incorporated a lot of personal things in there. Did I follow my morning routine? Did I get up and work out? Am I following my diet plan? Am I doing the other personal goals? So it's actually been turned into both, and a good coach will incorporate both for you as well. I think that coaching, you could have a relationship that has all three of those parts all mixed together as well. And you may want to find someone that will do a little bit of that. A good coach will customize it based on their needs. They'll also have, kind of a set schedule and a plan for you to work through as well, just depending on what the situation is. So.
Yeah. So 2 follow-up questions. First, is there some sort of catalog or easy way to go about searching for these individuals? And second, you listed some of your qualifications, certificate, schooling, whatever it may be. I'd love to hear your thoughts around that. What ones, why you sought out the one you did, what other ones there might be that are reputable, and things to look out for in terms of helping you evaluate the maybe professionality or ability of said coach, maybe even prior to getting on the phone with them.
Well, the professional coaching landscape right now, it is still very Wild West. And you can find people who have gone online and spent a weekend doing some course, and you can even do it. I think there's even free courses. So there's a lot of people that call themselves coaches, and I'm sure that many of those are and can develop into really incredible coaches. What I look for when I hire a coach, luckily, there's a lot of different schools within coaching, but there is an international coaching federation that regulates and keeps high standards within professional coaching. So if you're really looking for a business, professional, executive coach, or even a personal coach that has been really rigorously had that 100 hours of classroom work, had that 100 hours of practical work, and then probably has done some other things as well. There's a very rigorous exam at the end of all of that. There's both a written exam that keeps the ethics high within coaching that you have to pass, and there's also a practical exam. And so that International Coaching Federation, I would ask any coach that I would be looking at hiring, I would ask to make sure that they have their ICF credential or their certification through ICF. Now, there's a lot of different schools and philosophies of coaching within that, but they all have to meet the rigorous standards of professional coaching. I'm sure that there's other coaches that don't have in fact, I know there's other coaches that don't have that credential that are actually very incredible coaches as well, but you are taking a bigger risk on your experience and things like that. So I would definitely seek that out. As far as actually going and finding a coach, some of the best coaches in the world actually you can only really find out about them by word of mouth. And so asking around to other people that, other business colleagues or things, if you have other entrepreneurs that or friends that that have had a great experience with a coach, that might be a good place to start. Most coaches as well we have a very friendly relationship in the coaching industry. So if I have a beginning session with someone and it's just not a good fit, I have a big list of other coaches that have different niches and different areas that they specialize in, or just maybe a better personal fit. And so most coaches have other, places, but you can go to the International Coaching Federation website and look at their catalog, and you can look up in your area or look up, in your desired kind of area of specialty to find a coach that would meet your needs.
I love that. It's so refreshing to hear about an industry that's not based in a mindset of scarcity, that it's okay if we don't fit, and I am happy to recommend someone else for you. I love that.
Yeah. The very basis of coaching is built on abundance, because in order for us to create abundant lives for our clients, we have to be able to think that way. And so I think you'll find with most good coaches that it's very much about, like, I've had people that have come to me and have wanted to coach with me, and I've had to tell them, look, I'm not a good fit for you for these reasons, because most good coaches too will have their own standards. So I only take on people that are very passionate about a project that they're working on, and a project that I can get inspired by. Because if I can't get inspired about it and really dive in with them on it, then I'm not going to be able to do any good. And, looking back on, like when I was meeting with you and your husband, your mission just came through, which is why we were able to, work some things out so we could coach together, because it just was like, wow, you had so much passion around what you were trying to do. And you'll find that with most coaches. So.
Yeah. Well, and we did dinner with a couple last night, and I'm pretty sure he does business coaching on the side. And if he doesn't, he definitely had lingo and his countenance and the way he kind of talked to us sometimes felt like I was being coached. And he kind of called me out on this, where I told him I felt like he gave me a kick in the pants. And he's like, no. But one thing that he said that I feel like is just so applicable when it comes to reaching out to get professional coaching help as an entrepreneur, he just looked at me and my husband straight in the face and like, show up for yourself. You show up for everyone else. Like, you were extremely punctual tonight for dinner. You've done this for these people, blah, blah, blah. Show up for you. Where are you for you? And it was just like, like a gut punch.
Yes.
And coaching is a huge way that you can show up for you.
Yes. Yeah, that is. And primarily that's what it does. And most of us spend our entire lives living for other people.
Yes.
Even in the very framework that we define ourselves by, right? Like, I've got to get a job. I've got to, be this way. For some people, it's about, getting married, having a family, different things like that. And coaching is a great place to stop and to say, and especially with executives that I've coached, is they're just so busy all day, every day, helping everyone else. And then they go home and have to help their families, and they have no time for themselves. And coaching can be a really safe spot for people who are so busy and don't take that time to just have a few minutes to slow down, to take a breath. And I've even had sessions where we have a few minutes where we just get centered for just a few minutes before we even get started, because we have to really transition into, hey, I'm going and helping everyone else, and to, this is time for me to develop. And, some people, may look at that as selfish time, but actually see it as a huge investment in your ability to help other people.
100%. Yes. It's not easy to be introspective, to self-analyze, to really break down what you're doing, why you're doing it, how you can be better, reflecting back on past mistakes and breaking it down, like how you don't want to repeat that, or reflecting back on past successes and how can I articulate this to someone else to help them get on board, or whatever it may be. And it's easier at least for me, to do the checklist, to have my to-dos, pound through them throughout the day, feel good on the other side, and not take a second to think or reflect. And, I've loved the emergence of mindfulness and meditation and stuff. I'm not good at it. I should probably make more time for it. But to your point, it, in the same vein as coaching, are exercises that do help you slow down. I'm one of my first bosses. I say one of my first boss always told to me, like, slow down so you can speed up. When you back off a little bit and reflect and are a little bit more intentional, you can more easily get it right. Maybe not the first time, but the second or third time.
Yeah, totally. And that centeredness is, the interesting thing is when we make those adjustments, it doesn't just affect our personal or our business performance, it affects our personal as well.
Yeah. And I have loved what COVID has done to a lot of professional interactions, because, technically any moment now, my baby could wake up, right?
Yeah.
And I would no longer just be Casey working. I would be Casey mom.
Yes.
And by having our computers in our homes and Zoom meetings or phone calls even, and you're hearing background, I think a lot of people, more than previously at least, are seeing an entire picture of a colleague, or are presenting the full picture of themselves to people that they're interacting with professionally. And first off, I love that because it's just so humanizing. When we see each other more as humans, there's more patience, more understanding, maybe even a greater desire to be clear with what you're saying. And then also, I'm a big believer, and I think you are too, and when you take care of you as a whole, you have way more to bring to the table as a professional.
Yes. And in fact, there's even in coaching, we learn about kind of this level 3 noise. And what we do in coaching is sometimes we look for kind of this other stuff that's going on. And it's really important. So a level 3 noise would be an example, like if your baby starts crying while we're in the middle of this podcast, right? It would be, it would be inappropriate for us to just be like, oh, we're just going to like ignore that and keep going, right? Like, we need to stop, take care of what's going on, because we need to accept the fact that we are human, that we have other things going on in our life. And sometimes when we show up to be coached, we have so much level 3 going on that maybe, we just had this argument with a colleague, or we're working on this real hard project where we're trying to hit this deadline, or, we're really trying to get to the next level in our business and it's just not going well. There might be these other things that we really need to clear out. And so it's important, if you do start coaching, to spend some time at the first part of the session just clearing all of that out.
It's like you can be pushing on the gas all day long, but if that e-brake is on,
you're
not going to get as far.
Yeah.
You need to release that e-brake, that metaphorical e-brake, so that you can be efficient with that gas pedal.
Totally. And my first 3 sessions with my first coach, that's all we did was clear just all the garbage. I just like threw up all over her. It was like, and it wasn't necessarily like you would in therapy where I'm like, oh, all this stuff. It was like, what was all the stuff that was right on my plate right now? This is what's going on. This is what's going well. This is what I'm frustrated about. And we got all of that out before we even started like into what the core thing is. And that's also where coaching lives. It does separate. I do want to make a distinction. Some people are like, well, is coaching therapy? Is it not therapy? Things like that. And there is a distinction there. Therapy is very specifically meant to help with mental illness. Coaching is really meant to take high-performing, normally functioning people who are ready to get to the next level. And that doesn't mean that we don't have weaknesses, that we don't have other things going on, but that's not where that lives, right? If you have done therapy, things like that before, that's great. But coaching really lives in this. Okay, I am a whole functioning. We assume as a coach, I assume that you're coming from a place of strength, that you are a strong person, that you're capable, you're able to do, that you're a whole person, that it's not just business over here and my work life over here, but that all comes together into a complete picture.
Yeah, I like that. That was a good clarification too. That can maybe be a Venn diagram where there's overlap of them accomplishing similar things.
Yes.
But especially what you were talking about earlier, like, or maybe we haven't actually really dove into this quite yet, but like really establishing those goals, right? Where before you're reaching out, what are the outcomes, or even like what are things you cannot do without a coach, where you're lacking in knowledge, or like you said, you even have like kind of an accountability coach right now. Like what role are you? Maybe let's go through this. What are some things that like people could, like if we had an outline, a rubric of sorts that someone could fill out before commencing their search, what are the fields they would need to fill in?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think the first thing is as we mentioned, is really figuring out what is your general goal. Now, you may not have the specifics of that, and coaching is actually really good about helping you define your goals. So don't feel like you have to come to coaching already have everything figured out. You need to know enough so that you can pick out a coach to begin with, right? So you need to know that, oh, I need help. I don't know what help I need. I don't know what my goals need to be, but I know I generally want help in my business. And so I'm going to seek out a business coach, an entrepreneurial coach, right? So you need to understand those basics. But once you get into coaching, you can set and define all of those things. And so it's okay to show up without a goal in mind, and a good coach will help you define your goals. However, if you've already got a goal, so one of my mentors had a coach had a client that came to him and was wanting to get to the Olympics, and had set a certain path about how she was going to raise the funds to get sponsored and things like that. And he really, like, in their very first session, really helped her understand that what people were really going to buy into when she was sponsoring was her bigger purpose, which was to really help people believe that they could have they could accomplish Olympic size goals.
I love that.
Isn't that beautiful? And isn't that so much different than, oh, I'm just trying to get to the Olympics, I need to get sponsored, and do you have any money you can offer? But she went to corporate people and said, hey, you know what? I have this vision that I want to help people achieve Olympic sized goals, and therefore I need to get to the Olympics, and then I can turn around in the rest of my life, help other people. And she, the next week, got, I think, $40,000 worth of corporate sponsors just like that. And so that's what coaching can unlock is those things. And I think that my clients, they have two things that they struggle with. I would say that one of the biggest things is seeing their own potential. And coaching is really good about helping you may have your goal set at a certain way, but your potential may be 10 times higher than that. And I think that all of my clients, to some point or the other, they may have very aspirational goals, but a good coach will push you to be like, you know what, you're capable of a lot more. And that's scary to most of us when we're getting coached. We're way more scared about, a lot of us, especially if we've already been high achievers, we sometimes play it safe. And the thing is our baseline, like, of playing it safe is still higher achieving than some others. And so we can kind of get away with it. But a good coach will take a high achiever and 10 times that, or 100 times that even, and really help shape that perspective. The other thing we're not really good at, to kind of go back to our, in the same thread of what's a coach good for, we're not really great at sometimes at seeing our own weaknesses on the things that are holding us back. And it's really good to have someone with an outside perspective who's not our partner, who's not our parents, who's not our boss, who's not our, people who are working for us. We may not get the truth, the hard truth from those people. And so just like that coach that you mentioned.
Or says, hey, if we do, sometimes we brush it off.
Yes.
Or at least in my experience, I feel like it's harder to swallow almost from those individuals. And so don't really take it in.
Yes. Yeah, because there's so many other parts of that relationship, right? There's so many other things, even, with with people who are, so say if you have a team member or something like that, and you've asked your team, hey, come give me feedback on things we're doing well or whatnot. They may not have a great incentive to be like, oh, when you do this, it really turns us off. Like it really it puts us off of being able to do what we need to do, because, that person has an incentive to not tell them. And that really happens as you get higher up in your business and in your organization. You find that it's harder and harder for you to get the real truth from people. And coaching is really good at having someone to be like, hey, you're BSing yourself right now. And this is what's going on that's holding you back. And again, coming back to the other piece, and because of that, like, you also are able to accomplish so much more.
So in that story, especially of the desired, or the, what am I trying to say? The person who wanted to become an Olympian. You used a word that I wanted to ask about. What would you say, or would you say that you need to bring both of these to the table? You were talking a lot about goals, or like your main goal, but then you used the word vision. Would you also say that you need to bring some sort of vision or mission statement, or do you think that kind of gets developed throughout the process?
So if you already have a clear mission, a clear vision, and you're ready to execute and go, then a coach is great, because then you can just say, hey, this is what we need to do. Like, let's go for it, right? And you may have some quick analysis around that. But coaching is actually really meant to, if you don't already have that, to really help you clarify that. And to really help you clarify on your mission, your vision, your priorities. And I'll give you another example. So say, for example, you have a goal that says, hey, I want to get to, let's just say, like $500,000 a year in my business, or something like that. And a really good coach will pause there and say, okay, let's say that you go ahead and get that $500,000. What does that allow you to do? How is your life different? Who are you becoming through the process? What's the goal behind the $500,000? And for most people, especially within their business, they think, well, if I had that amount of money, then I could hire more people, and I could, be able to have more time to spend with my friends and family, and really like have more flexibility to work on the things within my business that I'm really passionate about. Well, a good coach will actually start with the goal behind the goal and say, let's absolutely work toward the 500,000. But first and foremost, let's figure out a way for you to have more time with your friends and family, to be able to have you work on the things in your business that you want to work on, and have you be fulfilled through the process, so that through all of that, when you get to the $500,000, you'll already have a life that does all that. And through the process, you'll enjoy it a lot more. And what we find is that people who take that approach actually get to those goals faster, because they're fulfilled through the process, and they already have what they need, and they're able to bring more to their team. And it's really cool to see, because I feel like we all just get so busy and going. We have these like goals that we want, and it's good coaching is good to help really define what's really behind that. And what are we really trying to accomplish? Now, if you've already got all that figured out and everything's great, and you're just like, yeah, I know, I just need like some accountability. That's kind of where more of the accountability coaching comes in, and a good coach will help you with that as well. And so really, I would say that if you are coming to coaching, there's a really kind of a spectrum of what you can bring to the table, right? The more you bring, the better. But sometimes coming in with a clean slate into coaching is actually a better bet, even if you think you have your goals and everything defined.
Yeah. So, I mean, right there, we kind of hit more on goals, the vision statement, but you also hit on something else. And I think that's also establishing what you value.
Mm-hmm.
And there are, and I can link these in the blog post, but there are lists out there of 50, 70 values. And you can go through and select the ones that resonate most with you. There's not necessarily, in the exercise that I've done at least, a limit. But then you select from that your top 3.
Yes.
Doing that helps you make sure that you operate in a manner where you are in line with your values, which then, going back to something else we were talking about, allows you to bring your whole self to the table. It keeps you as healthy as possible, so that you can function at those highest levels and be the most productive. Now, granted, there are hiccups in life, and that's not always going to happen, but that's the goal, right?
Well, I think that most of us, when we feel the most frustrated, it's actually because we're not living in line with our values.
Yeah.
And for most of us, that's because we maybe haven't defined or become, and even if something's off, we can't quite define it. And that in coaching helps with that as well. Like that's one of the main things that it's done for me is help me really center on what I'm going to say yes to, and more importantly, what I'm going to say no to.
Yes.
And one of my mentors as well, one of the best things he ever taught me was, if it's not a heck yes, then it's a clear no.
Yeah.
And there's no room for the in-between.
Yeah. It's like, so we have peach trees, and every year, and this is probably the same thing with other fruit-bearing trees, but you have to thin them out. And if you don't, you get all of these piddly peaches that you don't end up wanting to eat, or they crowd each other out. But by thinning them out, and you can think of this metaphorically with our lives, right? By saying no to things that we should be saying no to, by delegating certain things, whether that's, and this is personal for everyone, whether that's childcare, cleaning at your house, things that I even have friends who privately told me that look, in this process of both of us working, we have gotten a house cleaner. And it's something that we're really self-conscious about and don't really want to advertise. But if we were going to be saying yes to these things, we had to say no to deep cleaning.
Yes.
And recognizing that and knowing, okay, well, based on my values as well, I can be enabled to better know which things to say yes and no to.
Yes, absolutely. And I think the most dangerous things to say no to that are the things that are in between, the maybes that we say yes to. The no's are usually a little bit easier, right? The things that we're like, no, I clearly don't want to do that. But think about certain things maybe within your business that you're saying yes to taking on because maybe you haven't trained someone up in it, or you don't trust that they'll be able, that's something that's very, as the owner of a business, right? It's very easy to be like, people aren't going to be able to do it quite to the level that I want it to be, and things like that. And if you're saying yes to a lot of those maybes, those in-betweens that maybe could be delegated to someone else, then you're not able to say yes to the things that you're really heck yes out of. Hey, we need to go out and grow top line revenue. We need to go, do the things that you're really either wanting to do or really good at doing.
Yes.
And a good rule of thumb, and this is maybe more specifics into mentoring and coaching, but I'll jump into this. One good rule of thumb that would be good within businesses is if you're the owner of the business, if it takes someone 10 times the time to do something that you would normally do, usually it's good to delegate that. And so if it takes less than 10 times the amount of time, then it's usually a good investment to have someone else do that. And that could be a good rule of thumb, right? Because you may say, oh, well, I'll just do it because it's quicker for me to do that. Well, then your whole plate ends up being these little short tasks that you feel like only you can do. And you find that with, hey, should I hire an accountant or not? Should I have someone, do the cleaning, the deep cleaning within my shop, or things like that?
Yeah. Right? Well, and I think this is a good spot to tease something coming up on the podcast. In September, we are starting a challenge to launch your business in 3 days. If you are working on a side hustle or an aspiring entrepreneur and you have an idea, we will have 7 episodes to help you hit the ground running and launch that business in 3 days. Now, after those activities, to your point, pretty soon after getting that business off the ground, having your website, those are time-consuming things, but it's not really the heavy lifting that keeps your business rolling. And once you're done with the challenge, I highly consider you doing, listeners, not you, Devin, I'm sure you already know this, our listeners, to do things like what you just said. Find a CPA, find a lawyer, or through LegalZoom, whatever it may be, right? But get a business coach, like really soon. Like it's okay to invest in yourself. And because that will help you maintain that excitement that comes with the initial building, but also help you offload some things that might bring your energy down, or that might, if it's a coach, right, help keep that energy high. Yeah, all good things to consider, like no matter what stage you are in your business, but especially right after launching, that it's okay really quickly to find areas where you can include other people.
Yeah. And, I'm not necessarily associated with the Upstart program, but I love, from a coaching perspective, I've loved, this is kind of a coach in and of itself, in a box kind of type of a thing that I think is really great, because a lot of us think that these things are going to take us so long to set up, or it's going to be so complex. So I like that having this challenge within the 3 days, because really to get it up and going, that's really what you need. And so many of us are very perfectionistic about just starting.
Yes.
And the reason we never get it is because we just don't start.
Yes. And motion is so key.
Yeah. And so maybe a heck yes for you as a business owner, saying, I'm going to say heck yes to doing it imperfectly right now.
Yeah. So we usually close with our 3 takeaways of like what you would recommend for those listening. I didn't ask you beforehand if you had any, but I'm assuming because you're a rock star that you have good ones.
Yeah. I would say definitely look, I think, and this is true for everyone I believe this for everyone in the whole world, which is first, maybe get clear about what your next step is. And maybe that's hiring a coach. Maybe it's looking into, something else. Maybe it's delegating some of the tasks that you have in your business. But look at the next steps. And I guess this is out of order, but probably first before that, start to think about what's the bigger vision of where I'm going, and really how this process, who am I becoming through the process? Because at the end of the day, after you have all your results, you have those results, but then like, who are you at the end of that process, and who have you been through that process? And so I think it's really important to look at the goal behind the goal in that. And then if I would say as a third, like if you feel like coaching is something that would help, really one of the biggest things for me on coaching is that it helps me get there more quickly, and it helps get me a better quality result, and a result that I'm more satisfied with as a person at the end of the day. So if you want to get it more quickly and get a better result, I think that looking into coaching is a great aspect. You can come in lots of different avenues, lots of different ways to look at coaching. But definitely, I think that everyone in the world needs someone in their corner that is just there for them through the process.
Yes. And I wish we could end there, but I just remembered another question I have.
It's great.
So hopefully you can still end on something just as inspirational. But when, we're new in our business, we're maybe a little bit gun shy, maybe a little penny pinchery. It's important to make money, you have to spend money. But can you give some sort of range as to what employing a business coach would cost, should cost, why that's okay, and the ROI that maybe will come from it?
Yeah. And I'm probably a great example of this, because I have both spent too much and not enough at different times. And so I think it's really about the first thing I would look at is really, I think one of the first questions I would ask on how much you should spend is how prepared are you to take action and to do things within your business is probably the first kind of bigger picture thing to look at.
Right. Because, and do you have the bandwidth? So do you even recommend then like maybe start to delegate some things to open yourself up so that you can really take advantage of time with coaching?
I think to some point, honestly, I think that as far as from the time delegation, right, that's probably one of our biggest constraints is time before money even. And I would say that it's something that definitely you'll never really have time to take, you'll never really feel like you have that extra hour or so, and the bigger part of coaching that we haven't talked about, which is most of the coaching is the action you're taking in between the calls. And what does that look like, right? And a lot of that, you want to align within your business, but you may have some personal work that you need to do in between the sessions as well. And so it's important to make sure you have first and foremost, at least the mental desire to do that. I will say though, very quickly when you take on coaching, it becomes very important, and a lot of the things that you thought were important, you'll actually through coaching find that you have a lot of things that you're doing that you may not need to be doing, or that are time wasting, or you're inefficient in certain areas. And so coaching will actually create itself on the time. Now on the money side, that's a little trickier, right? And I would say that the biggest thing to consider is, what are your true constraints, right? Like it wouldn't make sense for you if your goal this year is to, it's to get to $100,000 in your business, right? It may not make sense to spend 50,000 on a coach or something like that, right? So I will give you some general guidelines, like just there are the best coaches in the world charge a lot of money, well beyond the ranges that I'm talking. And if you're at a place where you have decent revenues and you feel like things are stable, I definitely recommend those coaches. Those higher end coaches can be $25,000, $50,000, $100,000. And I would say that those coaches really can help businesses get from 100,000 to $1 million a year. But one thing, the most important to think about when you're investing is that it's you that's taking the action. And you, through coaching, you'll be able to unlock your potential, but you're going to be the one that's taking the action. It's not the coach doing it for you. And so that's one thing to remember when you're doing that. The mistakes I've made when I spent, in that range for coaching, I made the mistake of thinking they're going to do it for me, right? They're going to have everything ready for me and they're going to show up. It's not how that works. They unlock your own potential, and then you go out and do that. And then you become someone that has $1 million business. So here's some basic ranges for coaching. I would say that anything. So for if you're an executive, right, that it's hiring an executive coach, or you're have a strong you have a decent business and you want to hire kind of a higher end coach, you're going to be looking at around $350 a session for a higher end coach. For kind of your middle of the road business coaches that are really good quality. And that have, probably had some track record of success themselves as well, probably looking at about $250 a session in that range. And then for kind of your more like kind of personal coaching, coaches that are starting out, or, coaches that may be really, really good at coaching, but they may not have as much of a track record of success. You're kind of looking at, between 75 to 150 a session. For that. Also, a lot of health coaches kind of go in that range as well. I talked to one person who they were going to charge, I think, something like $400 a session for this health coach. And I was like, okay, but really the results of this are going to be based on what you're doing. Are you exercising? Are you eating right? Those type of things. And do you really need to pay $400 a session every week for that, when really you could probably get an accountability coach that's going to give you a very similar result for 50 to 75 a week type of a thing. So those are kind of the basic ranges, and it's really up to you on what's best for you. I think if you're just starting out and you don't have a lot, I think at least get some type of coach, some type of coach, even if it's just an accountability coach to help get your ducks in line and get a couple. And I would say that my return on investment for coaching has been incredible. The first year I got a coach, I instantly doubled my income. And that doesn't happen forever, and that's an extreme result. But those types of results are not uncommon within coaching. There's no coach can promise you results. So anyone that does, careful with them, I would say. But that's kind of what you can expect.
Ah, perfect. I think that was still really good to end on. I mean, knowledge is power, right? And so when you have those reference points going in, I think it primes you to be okay with spending that money, and B, also makes you feel like, okay, well, I know at least these ranges, so I know roughly where this person is falling based on that, and I also know I'm not being taken advantage of. So
totally
awesome. Thank you again, Devin.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks for listening to that episode of We've Connected. Make sure to hit subscribe down below so you get notified of any time we add a new episode. We'll catch you next time.